Hello and welcome to a quick end of day thoughts, end of day review after the youth team was knocked out of the FA Youth Cup on penalties by Aston Villa. Um, I'm just gonna do these kind of end of day videos sometimes when there's something else, some general thoughts to discuss. If I don't have something to end the day, just to wind it down, keep them brief, 8-10 minutes, something like that, just to keep them short and kind of catch up on everything that's happening, give some brief thoughts to end the day because sometimes it's like that. But yes, United knocked out of the FA Youth Cup 1-1 and then lost on penalties to Aston Villa. Watched it. It was a poor game overall. United probably didn't deserve to win. They weren't very good. I wasn't super impressed. I haven't caught every under 21s game, but a lot of players had really, really poor performances from usual standards. I think that a couple players were standing out as a positive. Were Monroe in the defense. He actually did quite well, especially as the game went on. He really grew into it. Um, some positives in fitness, things like that, but a lot of just poor sharpness, poor getting things together. Cheeto looked like he was really struggling from not playing so much, being rusty, shots off target, things like that. Probably could have gotten a goal, but probably should have. In fact, there was one that was wiped out that probably shouldn't have been. But yeah, United got beat unfortunately, and are taken out of it, and so we won't get that dream run to winning the final at Old Trafford or anything like that this season. Um, Mantato came on in the second half, and he looked fantastic right away, immediately attacking, immediately aggressive, carrying the ball, beating his man, creating chances, doing a lot with it. And then, somewhat unfathomably, an extra time, he was moved to left back. Now, for the youth team, because they're not playing the three at the back, he plays right wing and he plays left back from time to time. When he was playing on the right, one of the things you saw instinctively is he'd drop into like the right wing back position in defense. He's tenacious, aggressive, all of that. From the left back position, he barely got on the ball the entire extra time. United were completely poor and unable to create anything at that point in time, unfortunately. So I thought that was a kind of a poor decision that kind of put a damper on things because it looked like he was going to be once again in a position to help win them the game as he did against Arsenal, and then was taken out of it. And really, truly, he was probably the only player who actually looked like he was likely to do something from coming on. So unlucky there for United. Definitely a damper on the youth side of it. But, that ties into obviously the next few months. What youth players are going to be getting tested in Ruben Amorim's team? Now, obviously, we know that Cheeto has already kind of made it in there, and he will be back and all of that. So I guess we will see there, but an interesting one here, and I'm just going to share. And when I do these videos, what I'm going to try to do is maybe just share like what we've got, for the day, just to if there's anything interesting, just as a point of discussion to bring up and talk about. So we've got this. This was from Sully here. He says that he was saying that Amass participated in first team training this morning. Is now confirmed will miss the FA Youth Cup semifinal. So Harry Amass, obviously, he got his debut in the last thing there, and he actually had sent me this message about Amass training with the first team and not going with the Youth Cup. He got in that debut, and now it seems he's a part of the first team. And I think that the big part of that is United wanting, Amorim wanting to have this continuity of keeping two left-footed fullbacks available, so that if he needs to sub off Dorgu or something, he can do so without having to completely change how we're going to play and all of that. But in addition, what it does is, of course, lets us really hopefully get to see a bit more from Harry Amass. So he's one that we'll definitely see more of. Obviously, I do expect we will see Bendito Mentato on the other side as well, and that should be important. I mean, that should be great. That should be something we see through the end of the season that lets us get a good picture of Mentato and what he's doing. Um, so that's the kind of ties into the whole youth topic, at this point in time, that obviously there's like it's a tricky part of the season sacrifice. You sacrifice some players from the that you would rather keep in the first team training to go play with this youth cup, some from the 18s into the first team. But now with this out of the way, really there's no reason why we shouldn't start seeing more of the youth players come in. And again, with all these injuries returning, I think it's going to be really telling as to who's rated by who gets into that first team through the rest of the season and who stays there. And who gets minutes and who gets chances. And so we're seeing that with Amass. He's a player who needs to play at a higher level. We're going to see him potentially get some more minutes. It should be meaningful. But we will see who else gets into the senior squad at that point. We're coming into this, a big part of Ruben's job. If you go way back to the beginning, I said, look, a big part of him coming in midseason, one of the advantages is that there's a lot of disadvantages to Ruben coming in midseason, as we've seen. It can suffer on results, can make it look really hard. The other thing that is an advantage, however, is he gets to see a lot of players and determine who do I want to keep, who do I want to sell, and know a bit more thoroughly who who are the guys he can rely on and who cannot, rather than coming in summer and try to make that decision later. So we're coming into some important months because in the Premier League, where we can afford it, essentially, we really are wanting to see which youth can make the step to the first team and which players in the first team don't have a future at United. And so you've seen a ton of stories coming out talking about the players we're going to sell. Now, I made a whole spreadsheet and kind of put that all together a while ago on all the players that are likely to be sold that they're looking at and everything. But obviously, this has been a big part of the stories recently. Is up to 10 players could be sold. And there's this article from my paper from P Hall about ready to sell up to 10 players, and it's running through all the ones we know about, the guys who are being released as free agents, the Ericssons, the Evans, the Heaton, the Lindelof, the Antony, the Malacia, the Rashford, all of those. But then it's also saying, well, there's also Garnacho, and there's also Mainoo. And I just want to kind of clear up that point on this story that keeps coming back, and I like to just end my day thoughts with it. The discussions with Mainoo are very active and ongoing over him getting a new contract. It is the intention of all parties that he gets a new contract. Nobody can predict the future, and until it's signed, obviously anything's up in the air. United don't want to sell him. They wouldn't be looking at him for a new contract if they wanted to let him go. They don't want to sell him, okay? They want to keep him. Are there concerns over fitness and things like that? Yes, because he hasn't been playing that much. He hasn't stayed fit for that long. But that doesn't mean they don't want to keep him. That doesn't mean they want to sell him. That doesn't mean they intend to cash in on him. Firmly, the idea is that they keep Mainoo. And that is 100% the intention of both parties, is to keep him. Not to sell him, but to keep him. Look, you never know what happens in football, but it takes two things for a sale of Mainoo to happen, which is doesn't agree a contract, three things. Gets a big offer, and he wants to leave. Takes all three of those things because United will have time. They've got multiple years left on his deal to sort this out otherwise. He's not going to force his way out, obviously. But if a huge contract, a huge offer comes in and he wants to take it, I'm talking big offer, then they would probably consider at that point if he won't agree a new deal. But that's not the intention of anybody. That's not even the direction of travel of anybody. Garnacho is a different story. And there's a story here that comes from this individual about let me just make sure I don't do anything stupid here about Alejandro Garnacho. It just says he could leave in the next window. Amorim counts on him, prefers other players in the position. He held negotiations with Napoli and Chelsea. This is a journalist who actually broke some of the stories on Diego Leon from South America, if I'm not mistaken. I think. I could be wrong, but regardless, there was stories in this, but I believe it's also accurate. That's a part of it as well. So I like to give credit when journalists do it, hence that, not because of the content of it, but I also believe that this is tending towards being true. When I talked about it in the last video last week about, like Garnacho is much more likely to be the one leaving than Mainoo. That is still my complete understanding of it because he's had eyes elsewhere and he's wanted to be a regular starter. Will he be a regular starter next season? I don't think so. I think if United get the signings they want done, he won't be a starter. How does that suit him? And if you can sell for 50 to 60 million, should you, for a player who's not a regular starter? I mean, same could be said for Mainoo, except maybe he will be. But, we don't know where we're at next season, but we're looking at a 9 and we're looking at a 10. Where does that leave Alejandro Garnacho? Especially when his best position, still he performs better on the right, but we have better players for that position. So this is a tricky one as well, but it's like this is the truth of it. It's more likely that he leaves than Mainoo for sure. And again, it's going to come down to a few factors. Is there a good offer for him, and does he want it? If that's the case, then they will probably sell come summer. But we also have to see where we end up for the rest of the season. Um, we have to see where we end up for the rest of the season, and that's really a big part of Amarim's job from here through the end of May. Who can we count on? Who is probably not going to make it? Who will sell if we get a big bid? And who from the youth team can make the step up into the ranks so that we can really then pursue our transfers quickly. So some interesting stories, not a ton crazy, but I think we're starting to see that's kind of the mode for the last few months. Obviously, we have a lot to play for in Europa and all of that, but these are big judgments being passed. So an unfortunate loss for United in the FA Youth Cup, but we have a game tomorrow finally for the men's team, and hopefully we can carry some good momentum forward, have some positivity, all of that. And yeah, that's what we've got. So little end of day thoughts and post game on the Youth Cup. So thank you for watching. And I will be back in the morning with a live, a video, and then pre-match, watch along, post-match, all sorts of shit. So gonna be a busy day tomorrow. So thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next video.